Hey, how's it going? It's Craig. I'm out in the garage. Today we've got a bit of an issue with my 18-wheeler cabinet. Let's take a look. Okay, so I've had 18-wheeler in my collection for about probably coming up to 2 years now. I've picked it up in one of the first lockdowns when we were just about going into a lockdown. Managed to get across to Bristol, picked it up and stuck it in the back of a van and brought it back. It's in a bit of tatty condition. It always has been. It's an ex-arcade machine. It has been in an arcade. You can tell that by screen burn and other things like that. And you can tell it by the wear and tear on it. It's scratched up and everything. I've got to take it apart at some point, give it a respray, give it a bit of tidy and a bit of TLC. But usual thing with arcade machines, the cable breaks, the monitor goes, the game board goes, something's going to go on it at some point if you own an arcade games. And for me, this one today is just the Accelerator on it. So let's get stuck in. I'll show you down on the system. As I said, it's in a bit of a rough condition. Some of the locks are drilled out and everything else. It is a project for the summer at some point. I'm going to strip it down and give it a good clean and a respray. But let's have a look at it, see if we can get it up and running today, and then we'll deal with that when we got time. Cool. Okay, Google, turn on 18-wheeler.
Okay, turning the 18-wheeler on.
They crisscross the American continent, towing 30 tons or more at a time
Turn
behind
this
them.
down a second.
Breaker 19. This is Texas Hawk.
Okay, so this is my 18-wheeler cabinet. I've had it for probably coming up to 2 years now, and it's been solid all the way through. So to be fair to it, it hasn't had a day's fault. But I started it up the other day. I'll give you a quick demonstration now. The game runs fine. The monitor's looking lovely. The brake reacts, but there's no accelerator. So for some reason, it's just not responding to the accelerator at all. So when you're playing the game, you literally cannot play the game. You can't accelerate. You can't move off from the starting position. So we'll have a look at that quickly. Just show you the issue. Then we'll go into the test menu that's on the Naomi system. We'll have a look at the test menu on there, see what reaction we're getting from the inputs, and then if there's no input there, we'll have a look inside the Naomi cabinet, see what we can see. But it's in a good working condition normally, so it's had repairs on it in the past. You can tell that there's some wires down below which have been crimp connected and things like that, so we'll have a look at those, see if that's the issue. So as you can see, I'm into the game. If I put my foot on the accelerator, you get nothing. If I press the brake, you can probably hear it braking, and so the brakes are working, so we can hear the output from the air brake effect on the truck game, but nothing on the accelerator at all. I can shift up and shift down, put it into reverse, and I can't drive at all. So we can change out views, but nothing's working on the accelerator. So I think there's something wrong with the wiring down below on this machine. It's a bit of an issue on these because this foot panel that I've got down here is a bit of a nightmare, and I do fold it away from time to time, so I might have crimped something in there. Failing that, the pedal may have gone, the potentiometer and the pedal may have gone, so we'll have to have a look at that after we get to that point as well. So let's get into a test menu, we'll have a look in there, see what we can get on screen, and we'll see what the issue is. Cool. Okay, so inside the Naomi cabinet, inside the coin door, I've hacked the lock on this one. I'm going to have to get a new lock for this when I do the refurb. But inside of here there's a chassis board, so you can do monitor degaussing, so you can degauss the monitor. You've got two buttons at the top, one's test and one's service, and then you've got your pots for adjusting the volume, the bass and everything else on there. So we're going to go into this top menu, and that takes us up into an on-screen menu for the Naomi system, which will load up in a second. Okay, so this is the system menu. We press that one button inside the coin door and we get into this menu. And this menu is fairly similar for the Naomi systems across the board. So this one has obviously got an 18-wheeler cart in there, but the rest of the system menu is going to be pretty similar. So we can test things like the monitor in here. So the monitor test we can do. You can test the audio on here, and that's quite important for these games because the audio is pretty impressive, because got a speaker system and a subwoofer system. Get those calibrated right and it sounds lovely, especially when you're driving a big chunky truck around. Everything else on there we can test, all the bookkeeping and go into the data around how much this game made when it was on site, those kinds of things. But really what we want to test today is the input output status. So when the steering wheel is being turned, we should see an output on screen. When the buttons are being pressed, we should see an output on screen as well. So this game has got a 720 degree steering wheel, so it'll go 360 degrees that way, let it go, it'll spin right way around, and it'll pretty much go 360 degrees the other way around. So it's a 720 wheel in total, which is pretty impressive, and that gives you that full truck experience when you're trying to turn a corner and you need to spin that wheel. So let's get into the test menu. We'll see what we get out of all these inputs. Mainly want to try and get into that, see if there's anything coming out of the accelerator. If there isn't, then we'll play around with it, see what we get. Cool. Okay, so on the previous screen, I went straight the way down to the game settings, and we want to test the input for that. And then we've got input test on here now. So if I just press that top button again. Okay, so you can see, hopefully without too much glare, what's going on. So let's have a look at, I think handle is our steering wheel. So if I turn the steering wheel, we should see handle, yeah, change it up to, now it's a hex reference CBH, I think it is. And then we turn it right the other way around, and we've gone to 3/8. If I let go of the steering wheel now, that's spinning around and telling me that everything's working. If I do the shift, we're in shift down at the moment, so we're in shift low. If I shift that up, we're into shift high, and we can see that's on now. So this is quite a cool menu just to test everything out. We need to test out these two pedals. So we got a brake pedal, and when I press the brake pedal, our brake message number at the bottom's changing. But you can already see that accelerator's got 0H on it at all. So when I go down to that one, I press the accelerator, I'm getting nothing out of it on screen. So absolutely nothing coming out of that. So we know that this accelerator is not working, everything else is working, the steering wheel's working. So we can test the other buttons. So we know the start button's working, the view button's working, and the horn is working. So all of those are working quite nicely. So yeah, everything's working on this system as it should be, other than that accelerator. So let's have a look at the bottom of this machine, see where the connections are, and we'll see if there's anything loose or anything not connected. Cool. Okay, so I've got a key for this door, and behind here is a Naomi system. That's the only one I've got a key for. I'm missing the lock in there, I'm missing the lock up here, so I'm going to need to order a whole new load of locks for these. And if we unlock this and lift this down. Okay, so inside this hatch we've got our main Naomi system in here. We won't get to that, we can get to that from the back of the system. But you can see the main connections in here, so power and everything else going in here. We've got a VGA connector and our audio connectors going into the back as well. This is the connector that comes from this base plate. So this is the cables for the accelerator and the brake. So I think it's either something to do with this, where somebody's clearly worked on this before and cut those in and used some crimp connections, or whether there's something further along in the system. I'm going to get a multimeter and just test all of these, see if they're working, see if the connections are solid in there. If they are, then we'll move on and have a look what else. The biggest issue is I think this cable comes up from underneath. I know it's quite dark in here. Comes up through a little hole and then goes underneath the panel into this base panel. So there are chances that these cables could get snagged. So we'll have a look through everything and see what we can do. Okay Google, turn off 18-wheeler.
Sure. Turning the 18-wheeler off.
I think these are just all potentiometer cables, so we've got no risk there, but I'd rather turn the system off anyway, rather than shorting anything out. So I've got my multimeter here. I've got it in continuity mode, so we can test if things are coming through from, I don't know, one side of this cable into this side of the cable. I'm going to test that out and get through as many of these as I can, just to see if they're working. They all seem pretty tight, they don't seem like they're loose in any way. Not the best, I'd rather some kind of connector on it. Look at that one, it looks a bit mangled up and somebody's chewed it. So that one we'll test straight away, see if there's anything coming through there. So I can literally just pop a cable, probe into one end of this cable. And then one into the other end. Yeah. And we're getting continuity on it. So if anything, I think that one would be the risky one. I'll go through and test the others, see if there's any issues with them, and then we'll go from there. Cool. Okay, so I've been through all them. They all seem pretty solid. They're they're not loose. I've continuity tested them and they seem to be connecting, so I don't think that's the issue. So let's move this base panel out a bit. We'll have a look what the cable does underneath and see if there's any issues there. It's quite a long cable. It's in a bit of a protective hose, but there is still risk because it does get bent up a little bit every now and then. So let's try and move it back while you're on camera. Okay, so this hose is meant to protect these cables from any wear and tear, so it does to a certain extent, but I think ideally in the original setup they would have been coming up through the bottom of the cabinet as well. But this has been moved around so many times that I think this cable's subject to a little bit of abuse. So I'm going to strip back this electrical tape off of here. We're going to have a look what's inside of here, see what the condition of the cables is like. If there's no damage to that, then we might have to do a little bit of continuity testing between here and the pedals, but we'll have a look what's inside here first, see if there's any damage. This little bit by here feels like it's the biggest part where it's bent up to come into the cabinet, so hopefully if we strip this back as far as maybe where I'm grabbing it now, then we should be able to see if there's any damage or not. I think anything that's inside the tube itself is going to be fairly safe, but this little bit of exposed cable I think is a bit of an issue, so we'll have a look at that first and see where we want to go next. Okay, that's interesting. So I just realised when I was crouched down on the floor that I could actually sit up and move this away because it's not connected to the cabinet. So I started to peel this back to a certain length, and I've just come across another type of connector like we had on the inside of the Naomi. So it looks like this has been patched twice. So I'm guessing whatever colours we're going to have here, I can see there's a brown cable there, would have connected to the brown cable there, and they put this third party connector in the middle of it to make it easier to detach and things. So whether the original one got broken or I don't know, something's happened there in the past, but we got another set of connectors here that we need to take a look at and make sure that everything is up and running and everything's connected still. So I've got a lot of tape to strip off here now, so I'm going to strip it right back. Hopefully I'm going to have to take it to there just to see all these connectors, and then we'll see what the conditions of each of them is like, see if there's any damage, and then fingers crossed we can go from there. I might run a bit of new solder on all of these, or even put a new connector on all of them just to see what it looks like. Oh, here we go. So I've got to strip all this back now. Okay, I just snapped that brown cable, so that was loose anyway. So I'm gonna redo that one as a default, but I'm gonna start taking photos now because I want to know what color is going to where. It could be a bit of an issue otherwise. Green into get one of the yellows. That one looks a lot better condition than that brown one I unpeeled, so I think so far the brown one, obviously I've snapped it now, but it may have been on its way out anyway. Why would somebody wrap so much tape on your not use heat shrink? Heat shrink would have been so much easier to put in place and to remove afterwards, so some people are beyond me. Okay, that yellow is going into a pink, and again that one looks a really solid connection. Hopefully most of these are going to be in decent condition and not cause us any issues. I don't know obviously which cable is going to the accelerator. We'd have to run that all the way back to the pedal and have a look. The obvious thing would be to take the pedals out and see if I can see any colours on the pedals, but we'll get to that if we need to in a bit. Okay, brown into white again, and that one looks solid. I wonder if we got the problem on our first cable and now I'm just unwrapping everything just for the sake of it, but we're going to go through them all anyway. If there is the problem in here actually. So let's see if we can get to it. That one's come off as well. Okay, let's see if we can just slide that off now. Okay, so pink is going on to this yellow, and then the white is going on to that brown, so we've got to put new connectors on those two. What a nightmare. So they're not, if they were held that strong, they wouldn't have come off with just peeling this tape off anyway. So it did need a bit of a tidy up. So we've got one more cable to unwrap. Hopefully that doesn't come off as well. Okay, so we got the two damaged cables. I don't know whether they were damaged before I started taking them apart, but they were certainly loose. This one was connected, so it's brown onto white, so that would have been given a connection through. The yellow onto pink, I'm not too sure about. There doesn't seem to be any kind of connection or cable on the end of that. I don't know if that's going to focus on it. So that one may have been snapped anyway. So what I'm going to do is take this over to the soldering iron. It's a bit awkward because I've only got so much room to work with. Take it over to the soldering station, one by one, strip them back, get some wire on them, and heat shrink tube them. Do them all individually, and then we'll tape it all back up afterwards. There's a couple where there's a bit of fraying on the outer sheathing of the cable. Again, that wouldn't have been a problem because that would have been wrapped in that electrical tape that we just took off, so that shouldn't have been the issue. Let me strip it all down, resolder them, put new connections on them. I don't know whether to go with connectors or whether just to solder it straight through. I think I'll just solder it straight through because we've already got a connector there. We don't want another set of connectors which could potentially come loose. So if I strip them all back, resolder them, and then we'll go from there. Cool. Okay, so just connected those two cables back together. I didn't do all of them. I just thought there was two of the broken ones. I want to see if it works like this now. So I've just gone back onto the 18-wheeler, connected it back into the cabinet, and we'll go back into the test menu and see what we get on it now. Okay, so immediately I can see Accelerator's got A4H, I think it is. Amazing. So if I press my foot on the accelerator, yeah, we're getting connection now, so let me show you across here. I need to put a bit of oil on that pedal. Squeaky as hell. So accelerator, there's the second one up. When I'm pushing down and up, it's working. So nice easy fix. Just that one or two cables were snapped. So let me get out of this menu and see if we can have a game. Cool. Okay, so the system's just booting up. Let's have a quick game on it. Hopefully the accelerator's going to work, and we should have our game up and running again. I haven't played this in a couple of weeks now, so it'd be really good to have another go on this. It's one of those games I thought I was going to get really bored of quite quickly,
American continent,
but I absolutely love it.
30 tons or more at a time behind them. Please select a truck. Ready?
Woo! Working. Oh, not even making it on the first level. Come on.
Nice going! We still can't.
Okay, so it's been a couple of days and I'm back out here. It's been bugging me. The pedal's working great, absolutely spot on. But ever since I've had this cabinet, I've never been able to select or enter my name on the credit screen or anything else. And I've just figured out why, and I've just gone in and changed it. So this setting here, service type individual, it should be set to. I think it was set to common before, so I've changed it to individual. Absolutely spot on, that's working. I also found another menu which I'll find you now, and I calibrated the wheel and the pedals. I don't think the full turn of the wheel was actually calibrated, so you set it back to default, you full turn it one way, full turn it the other way, and it calibrates that. You do the same with the pedals, let it go, and then push it all the way down, release it, and it calibrates that as well. I'll show you the menu quickly, and maybe I'll calibrate them just to show you what it does. But now that I've done that, it's working absolutely amazing. Okay, so I'm back into the 18-wheeler test menu, the one we went on earlier to test out the buttons and everything. And in here, there's this thing called volume setting, and I've not changed it because I always control the volumes down here. But I stupidly didn't think that it could be the volume of a potentiometer or something else, or a switch. So let's go into this menu and I'll show you quickly what we got in here. So we've got a couple of items. Handle setting, the full lock of it, 80, 30 and D0. So D0 is your center point. Center point is 80. Max and minimum to set left and right full turns. Accelerator's got a max and minimum, and then a brake's got max and minimum as well. So these weren't set and calibrated to how they are now. I've redone them and they're working perfectly now. So if you have got one of these cabinets, whether it's an 18-wheeler, a Crazy Taxi, a King of Route 66, a club cart, anything else that's in a Naomi system, make sure you go into this menu and set these. Make sure your wheel is registering a full turn, and make sure your pedals are doing it. Otherwise you're not going to get the full out of your experience. You're not going to get, when you're putting that pedal right the way down, you're not going to get full acceleration out of it. So make sure you're doing this, and it's working absolutely spot on now, so that's pretty cool. Okay, so it's all up and running. Absolutely chuffed. This is best now there's ever been since I had it. So I can select players by using the buttons, using the accelerator. The accelerator is working nicely now that we've done it. This cabinet is a bit of a mess. These legs are really scratched up. As you can see down the bottom, there's loads of rust and things on there that really needs a good clean up and sorting out. So I'm going to have to buy some rust dissolver to get rid of all that. Then we'll sand it down, we'll red coat it, and then we'll spray it back into black and get it all nice and safe going forward. So it'll be a nice restore project over the summer, I think. So we'll get that sorted. But yeah, it's a great game, and I do love it in the collection. I don't know how long I'll keep it, whether I'll keep it forever or whether at some point I want to make space for something else. I do have a project that's up my sleeve. I'm going to be kicking it off in the next couple of weeks. I'll be doing a video on here, so please subscribe to keep posted on that, because it's going to be a big one. Probably going to take me about a year to complete. So yeah, it's going to be a big project. I'll do a playlist for it, and I'll probably do monthly updates, because it's going to be a slow burn but a big project. So yeah, cool. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you soon.